Today I'll be demonstrating to you how to retrieve records, but this time around I'll be using PHP, JSON, JQuery, AJAX, and of course, the records will be coming from a MySQL database or a table from a MySQL database. Now, for you to fully understand this demo, I am assuming that you have already watched this video. So the creating of database, retrieving the records from table. So using control panel in PHP. If not yet, you can watch this link because the table that I'll be using for this demo was from the table that was created in this video. And also, I'm assuming that you have watched this video. So place it part 1 until today is the part 2. So PHP, jQuery, AJAX, and MySQL. If not yet, you can use this link to watch this video. So what's new with this video is that I'm going to use the JSON. The JSON is the JavaScript object notation. It's a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy for humans to read and write. It is easy for machines to parse and generate, and it is based on a subset of the JavaScript programming language standard, the ECMA-262, the third edition. That's December 1999. So what is important here is it says here data interchange format. And in PHP, we have this function, JSON encode. So this returns a string containing JSON representation of the supplied value. So the value supplied will be converted to a string, but in the JSON representation. And that is this function is in PHP. And I'm going to use this function also, JSON.parse, or it's a method of the JSON class. So a common use of JSON is to exchange data to and from the web server. And in this example, the data will be coming from the web server using PHP, and it's from the MySQL database, and then it will be passed to the client now. So the client will be accessed using JavaScript or jQuery. So when receiving data from the web server, the data is always a string. And what we're going to do with the string is to convert the string into database or into a JavaScript object. Okay. And to do that, we use the JSON.parse. So let's now try to look at the files and use it in this demo. First, I would like you to look at this file. This is now my server-side file, the applist.php. Now, I'll not be explaining them in detail, but I'll be showing you this. This part connects to the database. So we have the host, username, password, etc. And this is just to check if the connection was successful. This was already discussed in the previous video. And this I will be explaining later. But for now, this one is empty. So if it is empty, it will not be doing this code because here it will be testing if this is empty or not. Since this is empty, it will not be doing this code, but it will be doing this code rather. So what this code will do is to prepare a SQL statement, select asterisk from emp ordered by ename, and it is stored in this object. Then what's next is we execute that query. It was prepared a while ago, and then we get the result from that query. And then here we actually created a black array. And what we have done here, so this is something new and different with the previous one, is we retrieve the rows from the result set, the rows from the result set. But this time around, we store them inside the array that was created here. So that will be done until the time that there will be no more rows that can be retrieved from the table. And next here, so we have created JSON encode rs. So this will be converted into a string representation of JSON of this particular value, and then we close the file. So if you're going to look at that here, so I'll be typing here emplist.php. So what we have here, so I'll be enlarging this, is actually the JSON representation in a string format. So it's a data that was retrieved from the MySQL database in JSON format, but this is of course in the form of a string. Okay, so that will be what is done by this program. Now let's take a look at the other program that's now in my client side. Actually, I can use that HTML here rather than that PHP because I don't have any PHP code here. All I have here are jQuery and HTML. Now let's take a look at this function. So this is now my jQuery. So if the window is ready, this code will call the refresh list function. And the refresh list function will do this. So this is not, I will be explaining that later. So it will use AJAX, and the AJAX will retrieve the emplist.php that was demonstrated to you a while ago, and then using the type get, but we don't have data yet, so this doesn't matter. So once we retrieve this data and it is successful, then this particular function will be executed, and the result of that particular file, this one, which is returned by the echo statement, will be passed to this. So this will contain the string format, the JSON representation of the data in string format. And what we are going to do with that is to convert that string into an object, a Microsoft or a JavaScript object. So using the JSON.parse. And then what we did here is we actually created the HTML file. So first here, we have a temp, variable temp. So we have the table. So if you're going to look at the code, similar with, or actually that's a HTML code using the Bootstrap classes. And then here, we have here the column header. So tr/tr. Then we have th, th, th. And then we have the variable I equals 0. And then we have a loop here. So from 0 to the length of the data minus 1. And then what we're going to do here is we create the table, the rows of the tables. We have tr here, /tr. And this doesn't matter yet for the meantime, but I'll just place an ID for that row. And td/td, so and so on and so forth. But what we did is td, and then we joined the value. So data indexed by I.fno. So this actually returns an object or an array of an object, because if you notice in our previous output, it's actually an array. So fno.ename.depno salary and commission. So what we did is we retrieved the data from this using a loop. And at the same time, we are adding these strings into temp. So that means that temp will contain all the HTML code to create the table. That's why at the end of this loop, we placed /table. We added that to our temp. So this means we're always appending to the temp variable. And then what we do here is the HTML code will now be the HTML code here will be placed inside this element with this ID. So that HTML. And of course, this HTML is actually the code to create the table. So that particular HTML will be placed inside this. So what we have here is we have a container, we have a card header, card footer, card body, and the card body has an ID of list display. Excuse me. With what's actually the ID placed here. So that means that the table created by this code will be placed inside this element. Okay, so let's try to look at the output. So m list demo3.php. So that's the output. This is the card header, and this is the card body. So this is the table, and this was the table that was generated. Now let's try to enhance this program further. I would like to place here some sort of a search feature for the program. So I have here a container, and inside the container I'm going to place a text box. And then I'm going to place an ID. So where did I get that ID? If you notice in my code here, I have this, I have remark it out. So I'll just remove this. So that means that I'll be getting the value from that particular text box. So text content here is the ID of the text box. So text content. I can also place here name. Wait. So let's take a look at the output. So refresh. So that's my text box. Let's make it better. So I'm going to place here a place holder. Please enter name. So what will be my output now? So I have here please enter name, and I'm going to place some sort of margin. So for this container, margin 2, for example, MB, so bottom margin 2. So there I have space between the two containers. So what I want to do here is, once I type a text, it will filter out the result sets here. And how is that done? So let's go back to our refresh list. So the refresh list will take the value from the text box, place it into content, and then using the get method that will be used, value of the content will be used for my data to be transferred or passed to the emplist.php. So that is something like this. This is my emplist.php. And if we use get, again, that means we're passing the data through the URL. So content equals blank. So that's it. This not get filtered. That is, what if I place content equals letter D? Enter. So you notice my record set now was filtered. It only displayed Daisy Pascual and Lebron Durant because both of them contains letter D. So how did that happen? Because in our emp list code, we have here the content, that is the data passed using the get function, and it is stored inside filter. So once to control the program passed to this one, if filter is not empty, that means we place something here, there's a value for filter, then it will use this code. So we have here filter2 is equal to percent we join filter dot filter. So that means, for example, if filter is A, so percent 8%. And that is what we usually use in a like, if we use a like operator in our select statement. So SQL now, prepare select asterisk from M, where A name, like, this is now my parameter. That means this will be substituted with values ordered by A name. And what is that parameter? So we just bind that parameter. So SQL bind parameter S, that means it is in the form of a string and it contains filter2, which is this one. Maybe percent, whatever the value is, and then percent. So that will be, so this operator will be filtering my records. And that's why, if you notice in my output a while ago, it has filtered the record if I place a value for the content. But again, if we're going to look at our main program, so this one is not yet functioning because we haven't placed any code yet. So let's go back to our code now. So in our main program, we should be updating our list. We should be updating our table. Or in other words, we should be calling the refresh list every time that I type a text. So how do we do that? So I'll just type in the code. Body. That's my selector. On key up. So that's my event. So what will happen if I press a key and then release the key? So, and again, another selector, the text content. So what will happen if I press a key on text content? So I'll just call it function, and the function that I'll be calling if I press a text will be refresh list. And the refresh list is this one. So we'll just update again our table. So again, if each time I type the text, it will refresh my table. So let's take a look at our program now. So I'll refresh this one. So once I press letter D, so you notice it has now filtered my records. I press backspace, so it's empty. It will show all of the records. If it contains something, then it will filter my records. I press letter A. So AR, because Maricon Squash contains AR here. Okay, so that ends my demo for today. Thank you very much for viewing this video.